What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Lou and
Sherry D.
Yes, we in the building. It's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. We are your host. We are here for another episode, and tonight's topic is play. So, usually, as you guys know, we are word nerds, but since the topic is play, let's take a second. Sherry, let's play a game.
Let's play a game, Lou.
All right. So, my game that I want to play is a game that we've all played. It's called I Spy. Yes? Okay. So, for those of you guys who don't know the premise of I Spy, Sherry, give them the details so they know.
Normally, it happens in a car. So this is already different, and I'm already excited.
Okay,
but the way that I've played I Spy is you find something near you in the room that you're in or the space that you're in. And you identify it and you say, I spy something with my little eye that's, and you offer a descriptor. And then the person can guess. And then you may offer another descriptor until they get it. Does that sound right? Is that how you play?
Yeah, that's about right. We would play this anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a car. But I feel like it's COVID. Everything's going to be a little bit different. So why not? So let's give this a shot. I spy with my little eye something that is rectangular.
Rectangular. Is it black?
On one side is black, yeah.
Is it... Can you use it to listen to things?
Yeah, you can do that. You can use it to listen to things, yep.
Is it a computer?
It is not a computer. Well, actually, technically, yes.
It's a tablet. Really, it's a tablet.
It is not a tablet. You give up?
Well, okay. It's a television screen.
It is not a television screen.
It's rectangular.
It is rectangular, yeah.
To listen to music. It is black
on one side. Yes.
Is it electronic?
It is electronic.
And it's not a tablet and it's not a computer. And
it is not a tablet, but technically it's a computer.
But technically, is it a Nintendo Switch? Is it a DS?
It is not a Switch or a DS.
Oh my God, Lou. What is it?
It is a cell phone.
Oh, come on.
No, it is black on one side. It is rectangular, and technically, it's a computer.
Oh, that was so good. All right, we have to play one more round. It is my turn now.
All right, let's run it back. Okay,
go. All right, that was good. That was really good. I think I should have got that. But that was fun. That was a fun journey.
Okay, cool.
I spy something with my little eye that is bristly.
Bristly?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it a tool?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a tool.
Okay. Is it bristly because it has bristles? Or is
it bristly because what?
Or just because that's the texture?
Oh, it's a good. The answer is both. It has it's bristly in texture, and there are some bristles.
Okay. Is it a brush?
It is.
Hey, there you go.
Shout out to my brush. I'm working on my waves.
Hey,
my
listen,
cut,
that brush is an essential worker, ladies and gentlemen. Where's my matter of fact? Where's my brush? But see, that's why my hair is all funky, and that's why when I go to the barber, I say, listen, cut it to a 0.5, and I'll see you in a month. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, it's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. We are your hosts, Lemire D and Sherry D. That's me on the screen, and that is Sherry on the screen. For those of you guys who've never been here before, this is a late night show where we talk about words and their meaning and how they impact us in our lives. But at the same time, it's nothing fancy, guys, nothing fancy. So stay as long as you like, stay as short as you like. We have a fantastic guest tonight. It's going to be Brittany Nicole. We're going to be talking about play, but not just from the aspect of childhood, how that impacts us in work and our daily lives and how you can benefit from playing a little bit. Sherry, what am I missing?
I don't think you're missing much, except for the fact that, yes, this is nothing fancy, but we are getting better every week. So our website is getting better. Our social media is getting better. And we're excited to be able to share more of what we're doing today. I'm especially excited about today's episode because Brittany is a really close friend of mine and she's amazing. Whoa! And so I cannot wait to introduce the world, all three of you, to one of my best friends on earth.
Listen, hold on to your hats. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick little break. We're going to give you some time to follow us on the social media. If you haven't, all of our other episodes are going to be up there. Make sure you check us out on Instagram at If You Stream It Podcast, or you can check us out online. Yes, we have a website. We are fancy like that. Pinkies up.
Oh if you stream it podcast, are we live streaming on the website right now?
It's like I'm looking into a mirror, into a mirror, into a mirror. Yes, we're live right now. So check us out at ifyoustreamitpodcast.com. Check us out on Facebook, If You Stream It Podcast, or you can check us out on Instagram at If You Stream It Podcast. And in the background, for those of you guys know, I love to jam out to some music. We are listening to the musical stylings of Elder. He is a local music producer from Boston that incorporates a lot of beats and music. He actually has a beats competition coming up soon. So maybe if not this episode or next episode, we'll have him come on to talk about it. But we're going to take a quick break. We're going to take a little hello to all of our people who are here. Drop a comment if you're here. We'll shout you out. And if you want to be that awkward person that stays through the whole podcast and doesn't say anything,
that's okay cool too. We like that.
Sherry, anything before we leave the people for like 10 seconds?
No, respect your elder. Let's get into it.
Boom. Let's happen. So if you stream a Day Will Come podcast, we out here. And we are back. So as you guys know, we are word nerds. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to take a look at the definition of play. And I will say, as a disclaimer, for something that we think is so simple, Merriam-Webster was definitely tripping this week because that definition was too long. It's not even worth mentioning. Shout outs to her. But today we're going to give her a break. Sherry, why don't you give us a little bit of the definition of play? Can you read? Is it too big?
No, I can read it. So the definition of play, the one that we're pulling up from Google, is engage in activity for enjoyment and recreation rather than a serious or practical purpose. The other one that they offer is to take part in, like to take part in a sport. They also describe actively engage in employment and recreations, especially like we mentioned before, especially for children. And then conducting of an athletic match or contest. These are all the different definitions that Google offered us for play.
Woo! Perfect. Fantastic. And I feel like when I think of play, engaging in activity for enjoyment or recreation, that's kind of what I think of. But especially being in the entrepreneurial space, especially in the last, I would say 10 years, there has been a big emphasis on play in the workplace, you know? So I've heard it more than just kids with toys. But I will say this, as a child, we played hard. So,
I don't know. I think I still play hard. Like when I think of play, I think of so many things. It's actually, I'm challenging myself right now to think of what is distinctly not play or where is play not allowed. And I'm having a hard time thinking of that. But generally, and I think in our last episode, I told you about a picture that comes to me when I think about a word, and some people think in different ways. And so my picture that comes to me in my mind of play, there's actually two. The first one is just a swing set, right? It's like maybe one of my earliest experiences of play. It's like related to a playground. So that's one like very clear image. But the second image that comes to mind when I think of play is actually a paperclip. All the ways that you can, like paper clips are really fun.
No, for sure.
You can do a lot with them, even if it's fiddling with them, like as, what do they call those things? Like a fidget, like spinner, if you know what I mean? If you have something that you fidget with. You can play all sorts of games with a paperclip if you unravel it or don't unravel it very much. And so those are like one of like the two things that I think of when I think of play. I have this like very intense visual image of like toys, like you mentioned before, but also things that you can make into toys.
No, I dig it. Have you, a side note, have you ever made that little jumper thing with the paper clip where you put it down and it springs up. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I call that the kangaroo. That's not what you call it?
Well, I just call it the thing that you put when you flip a
The
paper
jumper
cut.
thing.
The jumper thing. Yeah, I thought that was the technical term for it. But so for me, when I think of play and imagination, they go hand in hand for me. Anytime I think of play, I think of anything that allows me to be free in thought. So as a kid, definitely. Growing up at home, we had a lot of chores, but that's fine. Everybody does. But there was distinctly times where we were able to do things just because. And I think that just because aspect, that's what I associate play with. But because of that just because aspect, there's so many ways that I think of in terms of play. Especially as I got older, once I started dancing, the concept of play and dance was super important. I come from a dance hall reggae background, so everything that I do comes with a move and a sway and an undulation. As I started dancing Latin dance, particularly salsa, is very not rigid, but it's a very straight and linear dance in some forms. Bachata is similar, but there's more room for experimentation. It's also easier for people to pick up because of the beat pattern and different things. And for me, both were hard because it didn't come from that world. But I was like, you know what? What helped me learn how to dance when I didn't know how to dance was I'm just going to experiment. I'm going to be free. I'm going to do what makes me feel good just because I can, because there's no restriction. And in that experimentation or playing, I developed like foundation skills. I understand how the rhythm worked. I understand how my body interacted with the music, but it was only because I had the freedom to just do it just because I wasn't taking a class. I was on the dance floor, and so when I think of play, when I describe that experience to a lot of like my dance instructor friends or people who have danced for a long time, they say, oh yeah, I like to play with different genres of music in my salsa or bachata. I'm like, oh, you call that play too? I'm like, where, So my question for you people that are here, all three of you, is when we say play, what do you think of? What does play mean to you? Do you play a lot? Do you play often? It can mean whatever. Feel free to jot a comment. We also, as usual, put it to the people online. So we're going to take a look at some of their answers. Sherry, what do you got for me?
I think just one thing to add, just kind of on what you were sharing, and I'm excited to hear from the people. Right? What do they think about when? What do you all think about when you think about play? How does it show up for you? Do you play a lot? Do you play a little, like Lumiere said? But for me, one of the things that like I think about, and Lumiere, you talked about dance.
Yeah.
One of my kind of experiences with play that was just so central to my like foundation, and I'm a very intense person. I'm also like a goofball.
Yeah, for sure.
And yep. I'm very intense. And so I grew up in a martial arts culture. Wow. And started training when I was 9, started teaching when I was 10, and it was kind of rigid, but it actually included a lot of play, a lot of actual physical games, a lot of mental strategy, a lot of testing. We talked about this element of competition, like this idea of the fact that you're taking part in something like a sport. There is some recreational element. For me, martial arts was certainly a lifestyle, but it included some pieces of balance, right? It balanced this intensity, but it also included this joy and this communal element of how we share that. And that for me was like a huge piece of play and how it showed up in the way that we trained. We trained hard. We trained very intense. But we were also laughing and adding elements in of joy. And when I say intense, I mean difficult. Like our training was hard, but we were able to like filter in or incorporate things that made it fun, exhilarating, different. It allowed us to stretch, to be really creative. In my martial arts practice, we competed so much that we did something called musical forms. And we would show up at these big national, sometimes international tournaments.
Wow.
And then we'd press play on some DMX.
Hey, let's get it.
and we were very few students of all of the thousands of folks that showed up that would incorporate those sorts of of things, and that
Really?
kind of like reflected us, the way that we were playing with what was happening, that we were playing with the lyrics and the song, and then almost acting out a play or a kata or a form that told a story, right? And so it was this real interesting marriage of all of these things of play.
So just a quick question on that. So is it that you guys were the only ones that use music, or you guys were the only ones that use like those types of or genres of music?
That's a good question. We used to really play with that. And I think other people did too. But we used to we were one of the few groups that would come through and press play on some DMX, or would bring forward some soca or some dancehall. I think in one of the earlier episodes, we talked about one of my favorite songs by SZA that's called Karate.
Yeah.
At the beginning of that song, there's actually a little skit, right? And at the beginning of that song, there's a little skit, and we used to act out that skit, and then it would go into the song, and then we would do the rest. So we used to play with that.
That's crazy. That's what's up. That's definitely what's up. Yeah, and I feel like, so I guess one of my questions for you is, where does play come in? Where does competition come into play? You know, one of the things that I was researching play for tonight's show, they were saying that play is important for children's development. Whenever we think of play, we always associate it with children, either for the development or because it's seen as a thing that kids do. Two things that strike me as interesting. One, it says that most mammals, the tendency to play decreases as they grow up. So, and it's not, and it's interesting to me because we would think that, oh, it's because of life, society, a Western culture, Eastern culture, what have you, that, you know, our culture has conditioned us to play less as we grow. But the study said, I think it was the University of Pennsylvania, they're saying, no, it's because you're a mammalian. As you grow older, your tendency to play decreases. The only species that is not always true for is dogs. Dogs will always play throughout whatever their age. So I was like, wow, that's really interesting. But the second thing I found was super interesting is that play is important for children's development because they learn a number of different skills, and we're going to get into that, you know, later on in the episode. But I say all that to say that where does the ability to learn from play stop? You know, is there an age? Is there a time? Is it only restricted for kids? Like once I'm like, you know, in my teens, does the benefit of play stop, or can I still play as an adult, regardless of my field or whatever, and still get those benefits? You know,
I don't think that the benefits of play end or correlate to age, and I think that it's actually necessary for us to play, so that we can tap into our full potential. And I think about some of the work, you know, that I've done, and my work has really been around community engagement for years. I've had over a decade's worth of experience just in that space specifically. And I remember years ago getting a workshop that I did with a group of adults that were actually in all sorts of executive leadership roles, but the workshop was led by the Children's Museum, and the workshop was on play. And they started the workshop grounding in why play is important. Why play is important for mental health, for relationship building, for actual joy. They talked about the benefits of play, and they talked about this for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and then they put all of these adults into a room with some random stuff on the ground. There may have been a couple paper clips, some pipe cleaners, some toilet paper rolls, empty ones, right? Just the tube. And they just said play. Some of these folks hadn't played in 20, 30 years, right? Some of them had played just yesterday with their children or their peers. But what happened after a couple minutes was really interesting. This room full of adults with no rules started creating games, or maybe just playing with something on their own. Maybe they were doing something individual. Maybe they were doing it with a larger collective. And then other games that were really collaborative started to emerge. And one thing that was really interesting about this workshop was none of the games were exclusionary. None of the games included, this happened, so you're out. everyone just kept playing. In this particular workshop, that's how it all happened.
Right, sure.
All of that to say, Lumiere, long answer to your question, but I don't think there's an end to play. And I think that in order for us to continue to exercise the potential benefits of play, we have to do it. We have to practice play. I think play has to be a practice for us to tap in to its benefits.
I can dig it. So speaking of which, for those of you guys who are just tuning in, it's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. Tonight, our episode is on play, the wonders, the joys, and the benefits of it. We're going to be coming up on a break in a little bit, but before we do that, I want to talk about, since you said that play is something that we have to practice, you know, I guess the question is, where then is a line between work and play? Now, I feel like a lot of people always juxtapose work to play. And as I was, getting ready for tonight's episode, I'm like, is that really the right juxtaposition? Is work the opposite of play, or is it just the closest thing that we think about? But I feel like the way you juxtapose something also determines how you define it, And the reason why I say that is because I'm 100% on board. Play is something that you have to practice. Speaking from my experience, in my later years in my career, I work for a solar company. I've been there for about 8 years. And so over time, I've assumed a number of different managerial roles. And the thing that's particular about solar is my whole job is to get, because I'm an installation supervisor, so I work on the roofs, so I train people and do that. My whole job is to get people comfortable enough on the roof so that they forget that it's dangerous and they could die. That's my entire job. You know what I mean? So while I try to be, cordial and nice, there isn't really much room for play at work because you could actually lose your life, And the issue with that is there were long periods of time when I wasn't consulting, like meeting with homeowners. I was actually on the roof all day. So there wasn't much room for play at work. And so I just realized, since I'm spending like 40, 60 hours at work, I just wasn't playing as much, And so I realized it caused me to behave a certain way. So once I get to work, it's like, because I have to be like serious, which makes me think maybe work is a proper, juxtaposition to play. But I'm like, maybe that's just my experience. I don't know. Let me know. What do you think?
I think that work and play are not on like a binary, like you're either working or you're playing. I think both things can be true in appropriateness at the same time. Yeah. And I think that play is also an opportunity to make a decision about joy and how you'll look for it, how you'll find it.
I like that.
How you'll celebrate it, right? Mm-hmm. And so you talk about being in a solar company and your job is serious. There are safety elements. You can't be, quote, goofing around on the ladder. You may hurt yourself. You may hurt someone else. But you can make some choices that feel good to you. You could choose to hum a song to yourself when you climb up that ladder.
Word.
You could choose to celebrate something when you climb down from that ladder. You could choose to do a lot of things that are appropriate ways for you to play safely, to bring joy into that experience that are not disrespectful, that are not disruptive. I think there are a lot of ways to bring that forward. And again, I think that work is a thing that you should enjoy, that you can enjoy. And there are opportunities, hopefully, for you to bring play and joy into that. Now, that doesn't mean that you can show up to your job necessarily in a clown suit, but you might be able to do that if that brings you joy.
No, I can dig it. I dig it. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. We're going to check all the lovely people on Facebook. As usual, we post this question to all of our listeners. So we're going to see what they say. And for those of you guys that are just tuning in, it's not too late. What are your thoughts on play? When someone says play, what does that mean to you? Do you play often? When was the last time? Let us know. Feel free to drop a comment. If you just want to say, hey, I know Sherry. I know Lemire. Say what's up. We'll shout you out back. We love you. And when we come back, we're going to have our special guest, Miss Brittany Nicole, on, and she's going to talk about play.
So excited. I'm so excited.
So For those of you guys who are just tuning in, it's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. We're jamming out to some Elder in the background. We're going to take a quick break, and then we be right back. All right. Now, what's happening, y'all? We're back. It's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. We are your hosts, Lumiere D and Sherry D, and we were just jamming out to the musical stylings of Elder. Now, I don't know. I like what I like, and when I hear good stuff, I'm like, eek, yes. So, for those of you guys who have never heard Elder, please make sure you check him out on Spotify. He's got great music. He actually has a beat I think it's Beats on the Beach. Make sure you Google that. Maybe next episode we'll see if we can have him come on and talk about that. But check him out. He's got great music. Tonight, we're talking about play in almost every sense of the word. So, do you work and play? Do you play as a child? All sorts of things. Sherry, what am I missing for the people?
I think that's exactly it. We're talking about play. We want to hear what you think about when you think of play, how it shows up in your life, and the games that you like. Like to play, right? We're going to talk about some tips to bring play forward and some things to think about when you think about play. Just period. So that's what I'm excited to get into.
And we got our special guest, Miss Brittany Nicole, coming on in just a few minutes. But before we bring her on, like we said, we put the question up to people on the interwebs. And so we posted two questions. The first one was, do you play? Now, we wrote it that way because one of the things that makes this platform so unique is that it's open. It started off as an experiment for me to connect with all of my friends or across the world and give them a space and time. So as much as possible, we want it to be free. We don't want to guide the questions too much. And when we wrote the question, do you play? Didn't get many responses, but I kind of expected that. It's kind of sad though, because it indicates, at least the people that I'm exposed to, that the concept of play is either so foreign or so broad that they just don't know what to say. So the other thing that we did is we posted something that is a bit, easier to grasp. The question was, for you, what is the difference between work and play? So we're going to pull that up and we're going to take a look and see what people said. Yes?
I'm so excited.
Whoop. Some of these are really good. And for those of you who are listening online and not watching it, we're just reading them off Facebook. So there's that. You're not missing anything. So Patricia G says, one is duty, the other is enjoyment. Well, I feel like it's my duty to have fun. So I'm going to assume.
Exactly.
So there's that. The next one, Linda H, she said, tough to draw the line if you love. Yes, amen. She said, tough to draw the line if you love what you do, but one is required to get paid, the other is freely done. Now, here's the thing. I can't say that I 100% take that. And the reason why I say that is a number of my earlier years, I worked completely for free, hard as a dog, but I loved it. But it was work, Sherry, you feel me?
I mean, there's an opportunity to marry these things. It doesn't always work out that way. And I think we have to recognize that. There are some instances that folks are in that their, work doesn't feel like play. Right. And that there are other opportunities, though, for your work to incorporate much of that and for you to have fun at the same time and get paid while you're doing it.
Yes. Okay. So the last one that I'm going to read, and I think this is the perfect segue. So this is from Chocho. Love Chocho. First off, shout outs to her. We'll talk about Black Girl Magic. If you see her on the dance floor, listen, she's amazing salsa, bachata dance. I think she dances other things too, but she is wonderful. Love her to bits. But she says, oh, and funny thing, she says, haha, no idea now that I'm a dance instructor. But of course, but she says, but okay, serious answer. Work is something you have to receive an external incentive to get you to do it yourself. Play is anything that brings you joy through the act of doing it, which can include things done for others. So yeah, I feel like that's the perfect marriage between work and play.
Yeah, I think there is something to be said, though, about the voluntary nature, right? Yeah. Like, play is something that you opt into, that isn't mandated. And I think that thread really kind of surfaced that. And I think that's an important kind of acknowledgement, right? You can't force somebody to play, and not everyone enjoys the same things.
Exactly. So this is one of my favorite parts. Speaking of differences of experiences, usually I give the introductions, but Sherry, I'm handing the reins over to you.
Oh my goodness.
Now here's the thing. I will make like eek noises in the background because that's how I feel about, listen, if they're good enough for you, they're good enough for me. So I'm happy for all of your people. If you want to introduce our guest.
I'm so excited. And Lumiere, I will try to do justice to your introductions because you give amazing introductions. But the guest that we're bringing on today, like I said, is a really close personal friend of mine, one of my best friends in the Bay, part of my chosen family and community. But some of my earliest memories of Brittany are actually of her creating atmosphere. I think when I think of Brittany, I think of a badass atmosphere creator, and I've seen her do that in a couple different capacities. Sometimes it was in a service industry space where she was planning events and bringing like really awesome events like to the next level at like small Black owned businesses, or it was an opportunity for us to kind of sit into some imagination and think about what we like to do and how we can create an atmosphere for that. And in my time in the Bay, I moved to Oakland, California about 4 years ago. And in the last couple years that I've really gotten a chance to know Brittany and spend time with her, one of the things that we do is we play regularly. And that's why I was so excited to bring her on. Nice. And when Brittany asks me to hang out, and I work a lot, Brittany works a lot, but when Brittany asks me to hang out, the first thing that we ask each other is like, what are we going to do? And whether that means that we go to a place and play dominoes, or we go to a cultural event, we go to a museum, we experience something different. For Brittany's birthday this year, we rode ATVs and sand dunes, something I had never done before. So without any further ado, I'm really excited to bring on Brittany Nicole, who is an amazing event planner, service industry extraordinaire, and atmosphere creator.
Shout out to Brittany. What's happening? Hey!
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you're just fine. How are you? Brittany.
I'm great, especially after that introduction.
Yes, because Sherry, listen, you've earned your introduction stripes. Like, we might need to alternate every now and again.
Great, I'm allowed to give introductions. Brittany, the real question is, did I lie? I think that in the couple years that we've hung out, we've done so many really cool things, and I think I really lean on you to help us navigate fun.
Yeah, really? Okay, well, I love to hear it because, like, I just feel like I'm just always, being myself, and the people who I attract, I feel like I attract them for a reason. And I didn't realize what I was doing for a while, but a friend pointed out to me that I allow others to like be who they are, and that's one of the things that I feel like might automatically create an environment or allow the space for people to fill out like what kind of environment they're in. And once they see that we're all real people and we just going with the flow or whatever, then everyone's just kind of allowed that space to like not only be who they are, but like to let loose, whether it was a long week, whatever. So it's nice to know that I can do that for people. So.
That's what's up.
Brittany, one of the things that I was excited to kind of talk to you about, and you touched on it a little bit, is this space to be free, right? Whether you've had a long week, whether there's a lot going on, and I do think that play is a radical act. It's it's like this conversation that we've had before where people's existence can be resistance. And I think especially when it comes to Black joy, being able to foster and sit in play and sit in joy is like an important radical act. And so just as you talked about this opportunity to be free, I was like, oh yeah, play is totally connected to liberation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, right now I'm 28 years old, and in my early, I feel like I kind of, professional wise, I feel like I kind of went in opposite directions as I got older. Like I started off with like a job that I felt like was like really serious, 9 to 5 medical field, and it was great. Like I really enjoyed what I was doing, but like it wasn't really meshing well with who I truly was at heart. So I don't know how it happened, but I was like, one day I was like, you know what, I want to bartend. And then like, as soon as I decided that and got into it, like things just started happening. I started networking. I started being able to plan events. And I was like, oh, this really like feels like I'm providing a service, like being who I am. And also like seeing the joy on people's face, like from the community, from around. Like you see, Oakland is like, it's a city, but you know, we call it the town because I feel like you see people around a lot. Like you kind of see the same faces a lot. Like it's very small. Everybody kind of knows each other. So, you know, like it really does feel like community. And when you're able to like walk down the street or go to the store, you're not always in the mood, but you're like, oh, you were just at the bar that I work at. What's up? You know, like they're like, what's that? When's the next event? You know, so it really feels good to really be doing something for the community. And yeah.
That's cool. And one thing that you said that I really like is that you said that you allow people to be themselves, but one thing that you said is you create that space. And I feel like, and it's kind of like what we talked about in the beginning of the episode, Sherry, when you were at that workshop, you were in a place where they put toys on the ground. There's a bunch of adults, but those toys there, they created an environment that allowed people to be as free as they wanted to. I mean, or as little as they wanted to, you know? Yeah. So the fact that you identify that you're someone who creates space, it's super important because the space that you create, it's not just limited to play, you know, being able to make space is like foundation. It just so happens that it manifests itself as allowing people to play. But some people, and especially in our current situation that the world is in, women, people of color, women of color, like, it's often that space is not made for them or that they have to make space for themselves, you know? And one of the things that I think is magical about play is like, you're doing just that. You're creating space, but the space that you create to play in, you can do so much more in it. So it's like, if you think that play is something that is secondary or lesser, you're missing that bigger blessing of what you could actually do when you're playing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely missing out. One thing I wanted to touch on is like space and safe spaces for women of color, especially, you know, Black women or just queer folks, like everyone in general, like being able to find a place where you can have fun, but also feel safe and protected. I feel like any environment I'm working in, like I'm giving my like 2 cents on like I don't like how that situation was handled. I see that woman being harassed. Like I've worked in like male dominant like bars and things like that where I'm literally the only woman, but things might be going on where I'm like, okay, this isn't cool. Like that's also a part of like this person is out here to enjoy themselves without having to worry about somebody trying to touch their ass like while they're walking, you know, like so we need to take more responsibility. So I feel like creating a safe environment is a part of that as well. I feel like play has also fluctuated. Like the meaning of play has fluctuated for me a lot. Once I did go into the service industry, I started realizing like me and Sherry and a couple of other friends had planned a trip to the river, and there was like an area where there was like just heck of people like kind of like on the shore or whatever. And like, I feel like that's kind of where everybody wants to go. And I was like, I've been around people all week, you know? Yep. You know, while I'm at work, I'm like, I'm myself, I'm outgoing and everything. But after that, I'm like, I just want to see my friends and my friends only. And like, you know, and that's when I also started jumping more into you know, I wanted to do the ATVs. Like I wanted something that's more intimate, but fun, but like out of the box, out of the party scene as well. So
cool. I can dig that.
I think you're raising some really important points, right? Like one, this point about like safety and like holding space is essential. Holding space, especially for certain populations that space isn't typically held for, is important. But then again, play is not always necessarily going to show up in some loud environment, in some, loud quote classroom. It may not be loud at all. It may be 1, 2, or 3 of your friends in certain instances. But the best thing, just going back to what we described before, is this opportunity to opt in, this opportunity to make a choice. And so B, let's get into it, because I have a real question for you. And I happen to know the answer, but I'm going to ask you like I don't know the answer to the question. And you talked a little bit about like service industry and like kind of where some lines need to be drawn. And I want to dig into that a little bit. Earlier in the show, Lumiere and I were talking about work and play. And can you play at work? And I think you have a specific experience with that. And so I think especially when you are in the business of creating space for others where they can be safe, right? What does it look like then when maybe one of your coworkers is playing around and you're trying to execute an event? You're trying to make sure that everyone else has an opportunity to play and show up and be appropriate, and you have a job to do. You are the play marshal. Your teammates is playing around. How do you even handle? How do you wrap your mind around that? And then what do you do?
It's like I said, being like, it is usually I have to like, it's usually like, these are male dominated industries, and I feel like most of my interactions would be with a male, and they were probably there longer than I was, and they're like, oh, like, like nothing is as serious, and like this is still a job, like I basically I just have to speak up, or like, hey, did you do that? Hey, or like sometimes people can be drinking a little too much, like, during show, because that does happen in the industry, and that's totally okay unless it just goes left. But telling them like, okay, I need you to come help me out over here, like you have to use a certain, like, I'm very friendly, I'm outgoing, like I know I'm a nice and good person, but sometimes, and I'm a hard worker too, so like sometimes people will slack off and take advantage of that, and that's when you gotta nip it in the bud and like, no, like I need you to do this, like what are you doing, and then usually they'll realize like, oh, okay, I'm slacking, or what do you need me to do, and like jump back in. But yeah, just you really got to be blunt. Like everything's so fast paced. I'm like, we were just slow, and like within 30 seconds, 20 people got to the bar, and we're still over here taking shots with our regular, like.
Yeah. I just so appreciate like you offering that reflection, because it kind of speaks to power and privilege too. And so when we think about environments where people want to play, when there is work to do, right, when there is something that has to happen, who does that burden fall on? It's going to fall on someone, right? And earlier in the show we talked about, and I said, look, I think you can play at work. And I was excited for you to come on to talk about like, yeah, you can play at work, but you also have to do what you need to do, and people need to be able to recognize those dynamics and say, hey, what's happening right now is outside of the boundaries of appropriate.
You definitely got to like keep the balance and understand like how to prioritize when it's okay to chit chat or whatever, and when it's time to get the job done, because we are at work, we are working for tips, like we want to keep this business going as well. So just prioritizing and being able to like balance work and play. And it's all fun at the end of the day. If we were slammed the whole time, it's still, I feel like what I'm actually doing is fun, like pouring drinks, like, multitasking, like really like getting, like killing it behind the bar with my coworkers. Like when an event comes alive, because like you've been planning it for X amount of time, and you see the vision, and you're like, oh wow, like this is dope, but the game is not over, like we got to execute it, we got to make sure people are enjoying themselves.
So one of the things that I'm hearing that I think is interesting is that we're making a separation between work, play, and joy. And I think that's where the separation is, because when we define play, in some definitions, joy is a part of that definition of play. So they go hand in hand. But usually when we define work, maybe this will be another episode on its own, we don't really mention the aspect of joy. So whenever we mention work and there's joy, we assume that it's play. But like you said, if I'm working an event, 10 people just ordered 3 drinks each. I need to serve 30 drinks. I might love the fact that I'm busy multitasking, looking like a boss. But if I serve 20 out of 30 drinks, that's a problem because that's my job and I have to do it. And so one of the definitions of work was something that you have to do, you know? Now, in having to do it, that doesn't mean you can't love having to do it, but it doesn't change the fact that it has to be done. So what I'm hearing is that, and maybe it brings us back full circle. The difference between work and play is that you gotta get it done.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't love it, but like I can't show up at work and be like, you know what I'm feeling? That new Cardi B, Meg Thee Stallion. Shout outs to Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion. That song slaps. But anyways,
wait, hold on, because I love how Meg Thee Stallion. What did she say? She said something about switching her weaves up.
Listen, she said a lot of things, and in case we stream this on Spotify, which we will, I'm not trying to get in trouble with the FCC, so I'm gonna let her say it. But I say all that to say that song slaps like a baby just born that needs to breathe. But I say all that to say this: I can't play that song the entire day and not put panels on the roof. Why? Because I have to work.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, for those of you guys just tuning in, it's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. Tonight's episode, we are talking about play and we're having a great time. So we're going to stay a little bit more with Miss Brittany Nicole, your co-host Sherry D, and your other co-host Lemire D. And we're going to talk about some games that we used to play as we were kids when we come back from the break. And as usual, we're going to jam out to the musical stylings of Elder. We will be right back. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's the If You Stream It, They Will Host. If you stream it, they will host it. Yes, we will. But it's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. We are your hosts, Lemire D and
Sherry D.
And we're sitting here with Miss Brittany Nicole. We were jamming out to the musical stylings of Elder. So please make sure you check him out on the Spotify. And hopefully, if you're listening, Elder, we want you to come on. We're playing your music all the time. So this is your invitation. But speaking of playing things, tonight's topic is on play. And we mean that in almost every sense of the word. Disclaimer, it's not a family show. It's late. Your kids should be sleeping. A curse word might slip every now and again. But when people say play, there is adult play, and they're not talking about kids playing jumping jacks. But we make it into that, but that's not what we're talking about today. That's why I said in most senses of the word. But speaking of games that we used to play, Sherry, what am I missing before we get into the games that we used to play?
No, I love that. I think there is one thing that I am just dying to ask before we talk about the games that we used to play, which I'm also excited about. But before we get there, I forgot to tell everybody that Brittany is a creative and filmmaker, and that was a mistake on my. See, look, she's getting.
There you go. She was like, put some respect on my name.
Right, exactly. And some of the things that I've seen Brittany do include photography. I don't know if anyone's seen my headshot. It's beautiful. That was Brittany.
Wait, you did that one? The one with the green?
The one with my button up with the tigers. And
yes,
very nice. And we had to play around a little bit to get that shot. But the question I wanted to ask is, when you do creative projects, right? And I know that you use yourself as a subject often. When you think about the projects that you do behind the lens or in front of the lens, does play show up? And how does it?
Play shows up in a lot of ways. Like, I feel like part of the creative process is mistakes, happening, and those mistakes being a part of a beautiful end product. So play definitely shows up before I even get in front of or behind a camera, because I'm a daydreamer, and that's fun to me, and that's where all my ideas that's where they all come from. And when you're creating something with another person, like it's two very creative minds that kind of merge together. So that's another that comes up again with like being open and allowing space for people to be themselves and hearing people's ideas and their truth and everything. So that's just, it's natural to me, and I found ways to make it fun, and not only with photography, but recently me and my friend Ikram, we merged together and we created this short film where we're basically showing like the self-love, self-care, healing process of Black women, how we see ourselves, how we deal with certain things, like how we get through our times and things. But it's a very like imaginative form, and we just came out with a finished product a couple of days ago. And
congratulations!
Thank you. That's like my first like film, like short film thing that
first time.
And it's just so beautiful, just like with events and everything. You see them come together, like this is a whole nother level. And I'm like, wow, that was really like in my head. And like I talked to somebody else about it, and we were able to like make our ideas work and like create this beautiful product. So that's fun to me. That's fun to me. Anything where I'm using my imagination, where I'm a daydreamer. Like I could be looking at you like this sometime, and I'm thinking about like something.
I know. I've told Brittany Nicole stories, and she's like, "What did you say?" I'm like, "For the last hour, or like
the last word."
But I will say, like, one of the things I'm hearing Brittany say is this opportunity for play to show up in the creative space. It's like the connection with imagination that Lumiere was talking about earlier. It can start in your mind. It can translate to a literal play, right? That can be a film. Speaking of film products, Brittany, what is the name of this? How do we find it?
I was going to say, like,
yes, it's called Say No More. I have a link. I wonder, can I?
Yeah, send it to me. We'll put it on the screen. What in the shout out section? We'll bring it all up. We'll do all that.
Yeah.
Send it to Sherry, if you can send it to Sherry, and she'll send it in our chat, and we'll put it up.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And okay, now Lumiere, now that I got that out of the way, I'm sorry. I just get excited, and I'm like, hold on, I've been holding this all day. Now I'm ready to talk about
Sherry. I get excited too, and it's usually when I think of you. So it's like, I'm like, Sherry!
That is how we answer the phone every time. It never, for 17 years, it hasn't been any different.
It's pretty much been this, like, Sherry! It's like, but okay, actually, here's what I need.
No, every time it's that's almost like a game that we play. It's how we answer the phone game.
Pretty much.
We answer the phone the wildest.
Yeah. Oh I answer the phone like that for you too. I'm not just like, hello.
But you know what? You can keep that hello. Anyways, for those of you guys who are just tuning in, it's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast, and tonight's topic is play, and we're sitting here with Miss Brittany Nicole. So, the question that I have for you is, speaking of play, we can play as adults, and it is important for our development as growing human beings. But a lot of our play is centered around our childhood and our upbringing. So, my question for you is, what are some of the games that you played when you were a child? Now, I'll prime the pot. As a kid, I grew up with, I had 5 siblings, but I lived with my older brother, my older sister, and my younger brother. Our age differences are 8 years between me and my older brother, 2 years between me and my older sister, and then 6 years between my younger brother. So there were different like eras where there's only a certain number of people. But there was like this magical sweet spot where it was just like me and my sister before my younger brother was born. No offense to him. It was just like, that's how life was. And we would just play like, and I was thinking about this all day, and I was kind of embarrassed, but it's kind of great. We would just play the dumbest games. I mean, these games are just like the silliest, and she's definitely going to kill me for this. Shout outs to Morjetta Esquire. She's a lawyer, put some respect on her name. But we would play this one game called Scallion Slide. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, what does a scallion have to do with a slide? Absolutely nothing. How did you guys come up with the game? Growing up in a bilingual house, things sound funny because Kringlish, between Haitian Creole and English, makes things sound funny. And scallion, if you say, everybody just say scallion.
Scallion.
It's a fun word, you know? It's like, and when you're 4 or 5 or however old, you're like, oh, scallion, scallion. And you say with the Creole, like, scallion. So the game was, we would say scallion 3 times and we would slide down a mattress. So we took the mattress and that was the game. And we would slide down and then the other person would come up and do it again. But again, it's not just saying it 3 times. There was a song. And I'm probably
I feel like I want to play Lumiere. You're like, this is silly, but I am now imagining myself standing at the top of the
game.
Is scallion.
No, I wish it was that more triumphant. It was really simple. And it was Yan, slide. That's it. that was also, but it gets better though. It wasn't just a song. It was a dance. And so sorry for all my listeners who are checking this on the Spotify. That's why you should visit our website if you stream at podcast.com. You can see the wonderful dance. But basically the dance is you tap your heel, and then you slap. Listen,
that's
all the Greeks. Listen, we y'all took this from us. We're gonna let you have it. So the dance was scallion, yan, slide. Yo, that was like our favorite game.
Brittany, did you play that game?
Oh, listen. They were. I was like 17. I'm like, so like, scallion. It didn't pop up, but like I remember it. So Brittany, what are some games that you played as a child?
Yes, not scallion. Did you play scallion?
I could definitely. First of all, I want to get into the games I played, but me and my cousins, my little sister, have definitely slid down the stairs in sleeping bags. And all the adults were gone, and they left us to hold down the fort. Yeah, exactly. So I've done that, but like when you talk about like games that were just like, what? Why was that so fun? Like it was just me and my younger sister. We're 2 years apart. It was a couple months before my 7th birthday. One day we just randomly like had our Crayola markers and started marking the bottoms of our pants and like running all over the couches and like. It was just random, but like, I got you or whatever, and it's like hot lava on the floor, and my mom's like, hey, like, y'all stop. I was like, you can wash it off. Like, this is fun. Like, why do we think it was so fun? And she was like, no. And I was like, okay, well, can I do it for my birthday?
Facts.
And we made up songs. Like, it could be something so random, like everybody talk shit because I still to this day will like dance while my food is warming up or I'm getting ready to eat. Me and my little made up a song for warming up spaghetti because in black households, I don't know about everybody else, but spaghetti was you haven't seen
staples
over like 2 to 3 times a week.
Listen, but spaghetti was the real essential worker.
We made up a song for warming up spaghetti in the microwave, like because I was dancing and me and my sister like. I'm hella embarrassed to say it now. Get ready.
The devil.
Get ready.
Get ready, spaghetti.
It was like, get ready for spaghetti.
Eddie.
No.
Listen, you might need to do a collab with Meg Thee Stallion. Eddie.
You might have to do a Stallion collab.
Listen, Scallion, Eddie.
Yeah, I think
the ultimate was like with all my cousins, if we would have a family event, we would play hide and go seek in the dark outside, like in the bushes, the real. that was the ultimate like older kid game when you could outrun a few of your boy cousins at that point.
Big facts.
Yeah.
Sherry's like major facts.
Yeah. Brittany, one thing that you said made me think of my childhood. Several, actually. I'm like literally cracking up over here. But one of them was, you mentioned this very quickly, and it was lava. That was a really important game. It was very important and involved all of the couch cushions being on the ground or things. And then you had to like jump acrobatically too, from thing to thing. And you could not let your feet touch the ground. And I don't know where the lava came from or like when it started or when it stopped. But you know what? It didn't matter.
Yeah, and so many people have the same experience. It's like, were we sharing like our imaginative like daydream?
Oh, man.
Yo, the lava
thing, like all the millennials share this experience.
The lava thing is real, right? Like most people my age or close in age to me, when I ask them about games they used to play and I mention the lava and the couch, they're like, yeah, that's true. A couple other classics though included Connect 4.
Yes.
And there was always a Connect 4 in the back corner of whatever community center I was in. You may have to like hold it together while you play, but Connect 4, I still play Connect 4. Like if I see one, I'm like, oh, there's a very large Connect 4 at the co-working space that I work in. And back when you can get closer to people, we used to play this large Connect 4 and I would just line them up. I'm like, who's ready? Who wants to play next? So Connect 4 was a big one. A couple others. These are some old school throwbacks. Battleship.
Okay.
Y'all know about Battleship?
Yeah, Battleship was fun.
I didn't know anything. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't know anything about Battleship.
Battleship was cool. You like sit in front of the person and you try to guess where their ships are, and it seemed very cool. The other one of the other classics that's important. Do y'all remember this game? I think it was called Guess Who.
Yes.
All the things flipped up, and you would try and guess. And then you'd I love flipping the cards down, but Guess Who is a classic. Classic. There are plenty of games that I wanted to play, but never got my hands on. But those were some that were like staples for us.
Yep.
Did y'all play Trouble or Speed? Speed was my jam.
Speed, we used to slap each other's hands and tear each other's fingers up because we got so competitive. But Speed, so card games in general, so spades were big. I grew up playing Rummy and Rummy 500 with my mom. We still play Rummy 5. Now we play Rummy 5000, but I play cards with my mom probably once a day, every day, right? So we play a lot of cards. But Speed was a good one. Spades is another huge one. I'm in a Dominoes league now. Did you know that about me, Lumiere?
I did not know that you're in the Dominoes. You're dominating the Dominoes. I'm with it. I'm about that. That's what the D stands for. Sherry dominates. Sherry dominates in Dominoes. Get at me. No pizza. Pineapple on the pizza all day, every day. Say which.
I don't always win, but I certainly try. But if you're gonna play spades with Brittany, you should really plan on winning, or just not be on her team.
Yeah, because my friends are still scared to play spades with me. I didn't have to tell my little cousin, like, you're the little cousin. Who are you talking to? So
I've heard.
If you're a stranger, you playing spades with me, don't play.
I've heard that many wars and lives and families have been lost and changed over this game of spades. So I've thankfully strayed away from it. I've heard countries have been seceded from because books have been misplaced and mismatched, and I read, but now I'm afraid because of this game of spades of which you guys speak. But before we get into that, one of the things that I think that is interesting about Sherry, what you mentioned about the lava game, and Brittany, a lot of the games that you play and the things that I mentioned is that some things are intrinsic to us as kids as we develop, and in some regards, it's almost as if play is intrinsic to us as young people when we're growing. And I was, doing some research, and I checked on Discover Magazine. There was an article on top 20 facts of play, and the first one that they said that I thought was really interesting. It says children will play whether they live in a suburb or a war zone. The urge is so strong that children even play in concentration camps during the Holocaust. So I say all that to say this, that play is something that's so foundational that it doesn't matter where you're from, where you grew up, what your experiences, what your means are, that it's so important that no matter where you are, you're going to do it, you know? And I say all this to say, if it's that important, why am I leaving it when I'm a kid, you know? And so I say all that to say that it's super important, the role that play has in our lives, you know?
Even I just wanted to say, even when we were just talking about like the young like games that we just randomly made up, but they're just like the best thing ever to us. When we reminisce on that now, it's just like it touches that inner child part where you're just like you're being goofy. Like, what am I saying? Am I saying this out loud right now? You know, like, but I feel like we need to tap into that more often than not, because nostalgia, I think, is beneficial to our mental health and just our whatever direction we've gone in. We don't want to forget the positive experiences that we've had and the times that we've laughed our hardest. Those are very important.
Yeah, and I think just on that same vein, we talked about, play can be a radical act. It can be an act of resistance, like being able to live into our joy, to be able to express it, especially in moments of oppression when our joy is like under siege, are important, and they're important practices for us to have that extend over the duration of our life. And I think that especially for folks that have experienced trauma, being able to sit and experience safe play can be really, really healing. And we see that show up in all sorts of spaces too, but I think that there's a lot of like healing elements of play.
Yeah, one of the things that they said, and this is not just from discovermagazine.com, shout out to you guys, but every place that I've researched this topic of play, they always mention how play is essential to the growth of the brain, or in terms of development, and it's not just for growth, like you said, Sherry, it's healing. The way our brains work, the way memories work, the way is that there's electrical synapses that fire. And because of their firing, anybody who knows electricity, it has to keep moving. It needs a path. It needs to be able to flow. So when I remember something, every time I remember something, I got a jolt of electricity that's traveling a certain path, Anytime I do a repeated action, those neurons are firing and remembering that path. That's where muscle memory is. Sherry, as a martial artist, muscle memory is like your first language. You know what I mean? But the interesting thing about it is when we play, we're firing off so much muscle memory that we're not thinking about it. It's like we're learning and we're developing so much. And it's like if we don't play, we have to develop that muscle memory in a way that's less enjoyable. And one of the things, especially if you're in sales, working with people, the easier and more enjoyable you make something for someone, the more likely they're going to do it, So if you don't play, if you don't find a way to play within your work life, your personal life, and your relationship lives, you're still going to have to do that thing anyways. It's just that now, instead of having an easier way to do it, you'll have a more challenging way to do it. So I feel like no matter what arena it is, we have to find a way to incorporate play because it's so important to our development, not just as children, but as adults too,
Yeah, without question. That really resonates, Luke.
Fantastic. So, Sherry, anything before we go?
No. I'm excited to take a break and Brittany a break. She's been working hard, and I'm excited to hear what our folks on the interwebs say. And I'm really, really excited for third shift shout outs today.
Oh, fantastic. So we're going to take a quick break, jang out to some Elder, and when we come back, we're doing one of my favorite parts of the night. It's the third shift. We need like so Sherry, in addition to a producer, we need a jingle for third shift shout outs. I will take notes and all sorts of things. But until go for it.
Get ready.
Ready. Get ready. Ready. But until we get ready, Eddie, with the jingle, We're going to jam out to some more Elder. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. And for those of you just tuning in, it's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. We are your hosts, Lemire D and Sherry D. We'll be right back. All right, y'all. What's going on? It's Lemire D and it is
Sherry D.
And we are the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. We are your hosts and we're kicking it with Miss Brittany Nicole. So, one of the things that I love about play is that play is challenging. You know, as much as, you know, we enjoy play. And again, where we've gotten so far is that the difference between work and play is you got to work, and play is something that you do because you want to. You know, you can enjoy work, but it's still work because you have to do it. And the other side of that coin is play can sometimes be hard. You know what I mean? I grew up with really close to my older sister, so we didn't really roughhouse because I was big early. Like I was like muscles in 8th grade, like so we couldn't do that.
Okay.
But, hey, listen, shout outs to discipline. It works, you know. Hey, teammate pack. We ain't gonna talk about that. That's another episode. She's like, well,
why is that another episode?
So shout outs to the body issue. It will be coming soon. We don't know when, but make sure you tune in. But I say all that to say this, that one of the things that I found was challenging. I played a lot of video games when I was younger, and I loved video games because they're very intellectually stimulating. I had a big vocabulary when I was younger because my parents always spoke full sentences, and they made a big stink about it. So I was always exposed to new words. And when you're a kid, when you speak with certain people, they see you at your age, but they don't see you at your intellect. You know, and in video games, the game maker says, this is the story and this is the language I'm going to play. These are the challenges I'm going to put in there. So now I can play at the height of my intellect, not at the base of my age, you know? And it was hard. Some of the concepts were hard, but like I felt so fulfilled. And I think that's one of the joys about play is that even when play is hard, because I'm choosing to go through that hard thing, once I get over it, it's like it's even better, you know? Whereas I could go through something hard at work and it's like, ugh, I'm done with this because I had to do that hard thing, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. But we're going to get back into play, but it is now our favorite time of the night. It is where we show love to people because why not show love? It's the third shift shout outs. So for those of you guys who are just tuning in, it's If You Stream It, They Will Come. If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. And what we like to do, it's called our third shift shout outs. And so, as you know, you can't love anyone if you can't love yourself. So if you're not following us already, make sure you do so because we think we're kind of cool. I mean, we're all nerds, but I mean, for the most part, we're enjoyable. Check us out on Instagram at If You Stream It Podcast. You can also check us out on the website, which is live. You can check our episodes, If You Stream It Podcast.com. And hey, look, we're live. You can check us out now. So there's a thing. The next person that we wanted to give a shout out to is our lovely guest, Miss Brittany Nicole. And for those of you guys who are just listening, it's BRTTNY.NICOLE. Please make sure you follow her. She is a wonderful creative, a filmmaker. She also works in the service industry, and she has a lot of fun. And she'll make space for you to have fun too if you're on the West Coast. So, yes. Sherry, any things that we got to shout out? Anyone?
Yeah, we got a couple others. So we want to make sure that we lift up Brittany's film project, the Say No More short film that you can check out on YouTube.
On YouTube. All right. Well, let me see if I can pull that up for the people. We're not going to play it here, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. So you got, I already got to pull it up. Fantastic. I'm actually excited to see this. I love finding new things to watch. When on my off time, I sit down, I Netflix and chill by myself. That's the thing. So you said you're a filmmaker. I am super excited.
Already queued up. I know what I'm watching tonight or this morning, however you want to frame it. And then moving right along with our third shift shout outs, there's a couple other folks we want to lift up. Brittany, remind us again your filmmaking partner for the Say No More project. Who was it?
Yeah, so my partner Ikram, she's from the Bay, a dope filmmaker. Eat the Sneak, not Keep, who is also a rapper from the Bay, but that's another story.
Okay.
Sneak, EEKDASNEAK. He's the one that I've been collaborating with. And
then who else we got?
Yeah, so someone who really inspired me to get into film is my really dope friend Anais Cisco. And I also have her name right there in the chat.
Where? There she goes.
Yeah, that's Anais. And you know what's funny? Ikram and Anais are both Sagittarius, just like me. We know how to have fun. You know, we know how to shoot for the stars.
Nope. No pun intended.
No pun. Literally. So yeah. So those are just a couple of dope filmmaking creatives that I really admire and I love to be, in contact with and creating with.
Before we move on from Anais, I'm like, leave that up for just one more second, Lumiere. Anais is really, really great. Anais is a professor. She makes amazing filmmaking projects, which you can see on what you can see on their page. But Anais is like truly is amazing. If you follow anyone, follow all the people that we mentioned, and make sure you click follow on Anais. Like, I think that's going to be an example of a revolutionary creative and filmmaker of our time.
I'm excited. And for those of you guys who are just listening, that is ANAIIS05. Again, that's ANAIIS05. Make sure you follow her on the gram. And a couple more shout outs, and I think we'll be done. I got to shout out Jetta. She is my sister. She is also a lawyer in Boston. So if you have anything that has to do with real estate or immigration and you need representation, you need an attorney, please make sure you check her out. That's JETTA 617. I'm pretty sure she has a professional page that she will shift you to if that's not the best way to follow her. But definitely check out Margetta DeRizier Esquire, and she will point you the direction that you need to go. And last but not least, we need to give a shout out to my main man, Elder, on Instagram as Respect Your Elder. Luigi D. Again, fantastic producer. Here it is. Perfect. He has a contest. It's called Beats on the Beach. He's going to be hosting it at Wollaston Beach coming up sometime soon. So make sure you follow him on Instagram so you can get the details. It's Respect Your Elder, RESPECTYOURLDER on Instagram. So if you're not following him, check him out. And make sure you follow everyone here. It's all about love. That's why we do it. That's why we spell it. These are all fantastic people, and your life will be blessed if you do that. Don't miss your blessing. Yeah.
How can I forget?
Listen, go for it.
How can I forget? I cannot forget Jess, an amazing filmmaker who has basically like showed me the ropes with photography and things like that as well. And I just respect her work so much. There's her tag name for Instagram, and she has like so much work to show and so much more to come. So.
Fantastic. All right. Jess Ophelia. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And I see some familiar faces on her page. Shout outs to Jess.
Yeah, let's just acknowledge Jess for just a moment. Crazily special human being in my life, and was the individual that shot and directed on her own my TED Talk that just aired a couple weeks ago. And so I'm pretty sure that this is an example of maybe the first time in history that a queer POC shot and directed a TED Talk on their own, and it was great. And so shout out to Jess.
Yeah.
If you're looking for an awesome and amazing filmmaker, but journalist overall who's worked at places like NPR and the New York Times and all these other really wild,
nothing
places.
Big, just
small
real big.
Yes, seriously, follow Jess. Brittany, that was a really good call on bringing that huge third shift shout out forward.
Yes, and I'm going to spell it for all of our listeners. That is JESSICALAPERIODISTA. Again, that's JESSICALAPERIODISTA. Jessica La Periodista for my people who habla español. So make sure you check her out. Again, make sure you follow all the people that we shouted out because we're showing them love because we feel like they're important, they're pioneers, and so you should follow them too. We're going to take a quick break. We'll hop right back with Miss Brittany Nicole and with Sherry D and your boy Lemire D, and we'll be done. Stick around. What's going on, everybody? It is Lemire D, Sherry D, and Miss Brittany Nicole. We are here with the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast, and tonight we're talking about play. So far where we land at is the difference between work and play is that you gotta work. You don't have to play, but if you do play, it's something that you do because you enjoy it. That doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the work that you're doing, and that doesn't mean that the play you're doing can't be hard. But the difference is that I've got to work, but I don't have to play. And that's where we landed so far. We've also landed that play is important, one, for your development as a child, but also as an adult. It's important because it allows you to create space for yourself and others. It also helps your development and your retention. So those are where we landed at with play so far. Sherry, what else am I missing?
Yeah, I think we talked about kind of this need to bring it forward, as a radical act, as this opportunity to kind of sit in celebration of who we are, but also to pass that on. I think we've touched on some moments where play can be hard to do based on what's happening out in the world, but how those moments to capture play are actually wildly liberating. So that was the other big takeaway for me, that liberation is deeply bound, or can be, play.
Brittany, what else you got for us about play?
I was just wondering, if we're talking about play, we can't leave sex out, right?
Yeah, facts. Yeah, facts.
Or is this a family show?
No. I mean, listen, if your family is up at 1:33 in the morning, and unless you're on like the West Coast, even then it's what, 1, 12, 11. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? I do. They should be sleeping. So that's fine.
we don't even have to go all into detail or anything, but I feel like, a healthy sex life, if you feel that's what you're ready for, that's what you want, can be super helpful to you, just releasing the tension of the day to day or week to week, however often it might be.
Yeah.
And I feel like even having those intimate relationships can be both work and play as well. So, but just reminding yourself to find the joy in both sides of that as well, I think, can be helpful to not only you, but you're also loving on another person. So.
Sure.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're reading my mind, Lemire. You already know I'm about to jump all over this.
That's
So Brittany, I'm actually really happy that you brought that up and brought it forward, because I think that in the same ways that we've talked about opportunities to heal, opportunities to build relationships, opportunities to problem solve, acknowledging intimacy and sex in particular and all the ways that can happen, and that you can experience joy in that, right? It can be a healthy expression of how folks are interacting with each other, challenging each other, playing with each other, flirting with each other, and how that can truly sustain relationships and support them. A lot of the folks that I know who have been in really long relationships that are healthy include some elements of play on multiple levels, whether that looks like role play, whether that's engaging in a broader lifestyle of sex play. But all that to say, I'm super excited that you brought that forward, because I think that element of play is important, one to celebrate, and one that I often hear some stigma around. So thank you for that.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I agree with what you said. And it's like, if we're talking about play, and we're talking about play as a vehicle for joy, and I think I like that analogy, so you hear it often. But if play is a vehicle for joy, then wherever joy needs to be found, we can use play as that vehicle to get me there, because the vehicle's purpose is to get me to destination. As much as I love driving, I'm driving because I want to get somewhere. So when we're talking about people and we're talking about playing as adults, one of the things that adults do is relate to each other, not in just a work relationship. And again, sometimes play isn't just for play's sake. It's a vehicle to get us play. So if we're talking about sex, talking about relationships and intimacy, of course it has to be play. I was actually listening to I don't know if it's not a podcast, but like an audio report that Sherry had sent me from NPR, and they're talking about the different aspects of play. And one of the things that they said that struck me, but also resonated with me, is that couples that have some aspect of play in their relationship, they seem to last longer. They seem to be less stressed. But I mean, after having this whole conversation about play, it makes so much sense, because when I'm playing, I'm developing, I'm working out the kinks, I'm seeing what works, what doesn't work. I'm challenging. Again, play doesn't have to be easy. You know, all it says is that I'm pushing the boundaries. And so when you have a relationship, let's say it's marriage. Not everyone, marriage isn't for everyone. And I'm not saying I'm for or against it. But in a situation where what people would call, in quotes, a traditional marriage, where two people say, I'm committing myself to you for some indefinite amount of time. You mean to tell me I'm going to be stuck with you and I can't find the bounds? Or better yet, let me rephrase another way. How else would I find out where the limits are if I can't test them? But again, like I said, if I do something because I have to do it, it's going to be a slog. And if we're going to be there for the rest of our lives or till death do us part, I don't want to be down about it. I want to have fun about finding out who you are, what makes you smile, what makes you tick, or, you know, what makes our relationship easier. And that doesn't have to be bound to marriage. That could be people we're dating. That could be with friends, you know?
So I don't think one thing I heard you say, Lumia, that stood out to me is, you know, I don't think that play can always be a way that we test and lean on boundaries.
Right.
But I do think, though, and I think this is very much in the spirit of what you were saying, that play can be an important opportunity for folks to grow with each other and learn things about each other. But, you know, just going back a little bit to something that Brittany kind of was bringing forward before, is safety in play is like really essential. And especially when we start moving into this territory of relationships and intimacy, I think that consent becomes really important.
Sure.
But things can be misinterpreted very quickly. And so I also think that there's a line there, and you just spoke about it. There's balance, right? There's this balance of sexy, fun, exciting, challenge, learning about each other, being involved. But I did just want to speak to that element of consent that I think is really important.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when I say play in relationships, I more so meant if I have a significant other, I need to make sure that I have time, and not necessarily in a sexual way, just in relating with this person. I have to find a way where the basis of our relationship isn't because I'm betrothed or because we're going out or because of our relationship, whatever it's called, that you're stuck with me. I need to be able to say, hey, let's play tag because I want to play tag, because in playing tag with you, my partner, I'm going to learn something about you that I would never have, because our whole, and I'm going to use marriage because it's an easy example for people to see, you know, if I'm married to you, I've said I'm going to be stuck with you forever. So if I have to do my duties because I'm stuck with you, everything shouldn't be, and I'm not saying stuck because when you're married, that's not, I don't say that to me. You know what I'm saying? But like, everything shouldn't be because I've committed my life to you, now I'm going to be here. It's like, no, I want to be with you. I want to find out what makes you happy. Why is tag, you know, so that's kind of what I mean. But I definitely agree with you that in terms of intimacy and play, consent is super important.
For sure.
Because speaking as a male, not speaking as an African American male who grew up in the inner city, it's like I hear stories and I cringe and I'm like, what made you think that was good? And the answer is, oh, I was just playing. How? You know, like, and I think, I mean, it is almost the witching hour, you know, so we don't have too much time, but that's kind of one thing that I want to talk about is another aspect of play. And I think when we're talking about words and words having meaning, you know, I want to talk about certain misnomers, like getting played. I was just playing, in like the dangers in those kind of things. Because let me know what you think. Yeah, let me know what you think. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like, yeah, go ahead.
I feel like it's not play if it's a one-way thing. Who is that play for? You know, like that's like a act of it does. I guess violence could be the word. Like if you're playing but the other person's uncomfortable, that's some sort of violence, you know. So I feel like the word play is used too loosely in
Mm,
not only our culture but like in this society and in this world, in this country, whatever. But
for sure.
yeah, that's really important. Just like I want to create a safe space for everybody, you know, at an event, this type of play as well. When you're playing tag, you want to make, somebody might get hurt on accident, but you know, you want to make sure you're as safe as possible, or help them when they fall or anything. You want to make sure you're not causing the injury stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think that that just brings forward for me. So, like, yes, play is important. It's a radical act, especially for folks that have experienced depression or their ancestors have. And the reasons for that allow for brain development, connectivity, relationship building. They also allow for problem solving skills, like so many different elements.
For sure.
But the truth of it all is, though, that when we're not careful, like Lumiere says all the time, like words have a meaning, right? When we're not careful with how we use words and what society says about words, they can be weaponized. And so very quickly, someone's experience of harm can be trivialized when we say things like, oh, I'm just playing, right? It's like your experience is invalid because I'm acknowledging that I was playing. And I think that is an example of like a real problem, right? Well, like I didn't consent to that. And I think that in all of the beautiful ways that play can show up, I think that we also have to be careful about our responsibilities when there's play. At no point did we talk about the fact that play doesn't come with responsibilities. Play doesn't require a level of maturity. Play doesn't require awareness. Just because someone is having fun and playing doesn't mean that all of these things dissolve. Instead, it means that we have an opportunity to choose to do something that we enjoy. That doesn't mean that we choose to not follow our moral compass, that we choose not to be leaderful when we do that, or that we choose not to be a member of community when we do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And Sherry, one of the things that you said earlier, but see, I think this is the magic of words. And I think this is why words have meaning, because everything that you said, as I'm thinking about our conversation, you actually said it in the beginning when you were describing your experience with that play in the workshop. You said that when everyone was playing, no one was excluded. Everyone had the opportunity to what? Opt in. So part of play is like you actually can't really separate consent from play, because I have to opt in. It's only play if I say, yes, I want to play. So I can't see someone that I find is attractive, say a comment that's derogatory, and then say, oh, I was just playing, because they didn't opt into that. This very one-sided. You know what I mean? I can't touch someone that I don't know, that I don't have consent, and say, oh, I was just playing. No, because they didn't opt in. They didn't include themselves. So if it's one-sided, there's no such thing as consensual play. That's play. If it's not consensual, it's not.
Yeah.
Does that make? Am I missing something? But I gather that because the words that we use have meaning, and it's like when you look at it, any way you slice it, the words support that. You know. I don't know.
Super real. And I guess like the one kind of last thought that I have, and it's kind of like along these same lines, is like play is beautiful. We have to make sure that we're aware of things. But I also think that there's an opportunity for us to dismantle some things through play. And by that, I mean, just going back to that comment, like there's a lot of exclusion that happens in American culture right now. A lot of games that we experience are often not about collaboration at the end. They're about winning at the end. Right. So sometimes they can like include like a very capitalist focus, and they
Sure.
may not ground in like values of unity. When we start to look at games from other parts of the world, from indigenous culture, they don't always include a single winner, right? They can often include an experience of joy in just being, and they can be different. And so I also think that we talked about development and relationship building and problem solving, but I think that play itself can be used as a strategy that we study, that we learn from, and that we incorporate in ways that allow us to dismantle some of the dynamics that exist that are kind of hard to dismantle. But when we step into a play space, we're already in the space of imaginative license, right? So when we step into that space, we can take it a step further and say, and really begin to interrogate, well, like, why is that what winning is? And we can start to redefine the object of the game we are playing in a way that like centers people. And I think that as we've had this whole conversation, I think that is the thing that I'm really struck with as we get ready to close out.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what Brittany said before. It's like that environment, like, so this is beautiful. Like, environment is also essential to play. You know, it's like, yes, it's also consent. It can be hard. It's different because I don't have to do it. But once we deem it playing, a certain environment is created. Like you said, Sarah, like if you start by saying, let's play, like, oftentimes when we teach our children, we don't say, clean up your room or eat your broccoli. What do we say? Let's play a game. You know, so I 100% believe, I 100% agree with what you're saying. That's fantastic. For those of you guys who are just tuning in, it's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. We're having a blast with tonight's topic on play. We have our lovely guest, Miss Brittany Nicole, your host, Sherry D, and your other host, Lemire D. It's about the time that we're going to close out. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to let Brittany say a couple words before we let her go. Not because we don't love you, but it's because if you stay on, I'll talk, and Sherry will talk.
We'll never end.
You know, we're going to take a quick, like maybe 10, 20-second break. We'll come back, say our byes, kisses and hugs, and then we'll be out. Jam out to a little bit more Elder. This album like looped like 10 times, but it's good music, so we don't mind it. It's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast, and we back.
Spaghetti.
Ready. Oh, listen.
Hey.
Ready. And she's like, that's copywritten, y'all. What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It's the If You, jeez Louise. It's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. We are your hosts, Lemire D and Sherry D. We're sitting here with Miss Brittany Nicole, and we are talking about play. Sherry, before we close this out, any last things on play that we missed, we touched?
No, I think we touched so much. We had such a rich conversation from what play is, how it shows up in work, how we think about it responsibly, how we consider how it can be weaponized and problematic, how we center it as a radical act that allows us to dismantle and live into joy. I think through this conversation, I've learned that play is incredibly dynamic, and I've learned so much from Brittany Nicole. And Brittany, I just wanted to thank you for joining us, for sharing your experience, sharing your art. I have a movie to watch when we end this. I have new people to follow, people to refollow and DM. And I just so appreciate your thoughts, your wisdom, your insights about play, and your reminders that we kind of like need to do this more. Yeah. Any final words from you, Brittany? Again, thank you so much for coming on a really cool podcast. There's nothing fancy happening here, but we'd like to hang out with really dope and amazing people. But as we close out, Brittany, anything that we missed, anything that you want to leave the people with?
Yeah, I just, like we've touched on so much of like how play can go into your day-to-day life. I just, like, first of all, thank you for even considering me to like be here and just talk about like my day-to-day life. Basically, I'm like, oh, really? Okay, I didn't realize I was being radical, but now I know because it's true. Like our ancestors and our parents even didn't have much of an opportunity to play. You know, tells all the time, I don't play that shit. So and it's just nice to know that just my character and who I truly am at heart can go a long way. And I just want to remind anyone who's listening that try to like put that into the pot, like into your everyday. Like remind yourself of those things that you did for fun when you were young. Remind yourself of just like not only your inner child, but like being able to loosen up a little bit and not take yourself as seriously because the world is serious enough. And yeah, I'm glad we could discuss this and move forward. Even in this time where the world feels like it's just shut down, like try to find things like once a day, write yourself a note or a joke or something, like make yourself laugh because things can feel heavy right now and you just want to remind yourself that you have yourself and you have this podcast, at the end of the day. If you feel like you don't really have access to the rest of the world, you can always go these two lucky people and play.
There you go.
Brittany Nicole, y'all. Brittany, thank you so much again for joining us. Love to you. We're going to have to bring you back. We have 100 episodes, but we might need 2 with Brittany on them. So much love to you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a blast. Hugs and kisses, everybody.
Ooh. Brittany, you are family on the show. Come back as often or as few times as you like. I'm going to have to take you off the screen. Not because I don't love you, but because we won't go to sleep. Anything, I'll let you have the final word before I click the little button. Oh, thank you so much. All right. Sherry.
That was
amazing.
Fun. That was so fun.
It was amazing. I love it. For those of you guys that are just tuning in, it's the If You Stream It, They Will Come podcast. Again, we're going to be here every Sunday and Thursday night from 12 a.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific to about 2 a.m. Eastern. What time is that? 11 Pacific time. So Monday and Thursday nights, make sure you check us out. If you want to check us out on Facebook, we'll be streaming live. Make sure you check out our page, If You Stream It Podcast. If you're on Instagram, check us out on Instagram at If You Stream It Podcast. If you have neither of those and you want to check us out on the website, ifyoustreamitpodcast.com. You can find us there and you can watch some of our old episodes and you can watch us when we're streaming live from there. As we said, we are on the road to 100 episodes. Sherry, what episode is this?
This, I think, is episode 15.
We're on episode 15, y'all. Listen, we only have 85 more to go. But I don't want to say it like it's a burden. Like we only have 85 episodes left. It's going to be like 90, 99. And then before you know, it's going to be like, we did it. But if between now and 85 episodes left, you have a topic that you want to talk about, let us know. Send a message at info@ifyoustreamitpodcast.com. If you are a producer or a local music artist, we love sharing local talent. We play music all the time in our interludes. So if you've got music and you want to rock it out, send us a message, drop us a DM, and we will try to get you on the show. Or if you know some cool people that's like, hey, Lou, Sherry, you should talk to this person. Let us know. We'll do our best to bring them on the screen. And you can send me a DM over at LUMYRD on Instagram and Sherry at my name is Sherry Davis. That's MYNAME.ISSHARIDAVIS on Instagram. Sherry, what else? What else we got?
Lumiere, I think that's it. I think it's time for folks to go to bed. Thank you for joining us on our 15th episode on our road to 100. This feels like an important milestone.
Yes.
We are 15% of the way there.
Well, that's the greatest thing about like 100. It's like the percentages that's easy math, y'all.
Quick math. Lumiere, tonight's episode has been really great. I will win the next time we play I Spy. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you for playing today. A shout out again to Brittany and all of you who listen to us live and will listen to us in the future. We appreciate you.
We want to thank you all for coming. Make sure stay as long as you like. Stay as short as you like. Come as often or as few times. We won't get mad. But if you come, we'll shout you out. We streamed it and you guys came and we are so grateful. We love you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Peace.